Good morning, class, and welcome to 2021 contact classes. This module is for Agricultural Education 1, Bes Age22. That's your module's code. And my name here is Mr. Abraham Sholongela, and I'm your tutor for this specific module. So if you have any questions regarding these modules or you want any further clarifications, please feel free to contact me on the mobile right there on the screen, which is 081-4438-360. Or you may send me an email address, which is at asholongela@gmail.com. So those are my contact details. Once again, I would like to say welcome to Agriculture Education for the year 2021. For this module, I wish you all to be hardworking, dedicated, and self-driven students in this course. So the presentation will cover the subject content in brief, and then some general guidelines that I want everyone to keep in mind when you are preparing for 2021 examination. I will discuss some of the content of your study guide. I said some of the content of your study guide, not everything I'll be covering. So this I'll just discuss some of the content in your study guides in order to help you prepare for the coming examinations. By this time now, you should have a good idea of what the subject is all about as you have completed your assignment. Please note that I cannot give attention to the whole content. So should you have any questions, please contact me for help. I have already shared my contact information earlier at the beginning of this presentation. So for any question or any clarifications, please contact me for any kind of help. So the presentation that I'm about to give will just highlight some important aspects and some of the units of this module, or in short I can say I will just briefly summarize the content that I believe is more relevant as we are preparing for our upcoming examinations. And I urge you to use your study guide when you are preparing for your examinations. Make sure that you have the right study guide and you go through your study guides. Thoroughly study your study guide. Go through your guide and familiarize yourself with everything that we have covered here on the presentation. So coming to the subject matters now, I would like us to look at how agriculture provides food and income to the family. As we all know that agriculture is the main source of food productions, and at the same time also agriculture also generates income to the family. Now, under this aspect, I want us to look at various ways of preserving food at household level. So, you know, there are methods or there are ways of preserving food at the household levels. And when you are talking about preserving, we are referring to prolonging the shelf life of the food at the household levels, or to keep the shelf life longer of the food products. Now, some of those preservation methods or ways that can be used at the household level to prolong the shelf life of the food products may include like drying food on fire to reduce the water content, and also sometimes sun drying can be done, or curing and sorting. For example, when you are making biltong or maybe just to dry meat in general, so you can do this. Sun drying can be done in order to dry or to preserve meat, or in fact it reduces spoilage on meat or rotting of meat, because drying is a good way of preserving at the household level where there's no electricity and there's no refrigeration system at the household level. And then also at the household levels, there are also ways by which milk can be preserved at the household level. And this can be done according to the following cooling methods. For example, you can do this by keeping the milk in the shade and not in the sun. Yes, of course, it's very important that the milk is being kept in the shade and not in the sun, because the sun can tamper with the milk flavor, or even the color of the milk might change because of heat from the sun. Now, also keep the milk in a well ventilated place. So it's very important when you are talking about a ventilated place, is where is place where air is freely flowing in that place or space. So that could be a good or a conducive environment for keeping milk. Or use cold water to cool them. For example, you can put the milk in a container or of water bath, or in a stream, water stream. Or you can also use ice to cool the milk. So these are all simple methods of preserving milk at the household levels. Apart from that, preservations, as I said earlier, I would like you to go to your study guide again, open your study guide and read more on the main, I want you to read and understand the main reasons of preserving food at the household levels. Yes, we have talked about these preservation methods, but what could be the main reasons? What is the purpose of preserving food? I even have said it already, some of them, as I said, preservation of food is done in order to prolong the shelf life or to reduce the food spoilage. But I want you to go to your study guide and study more and understand the main reason of preserving food at the household levels. And I also want you to go in your study guide and understand the rationale behind agriculture as a subject for upper primary learners in Namibia. What do you think agriculture can be taught at the upper primary level in Namibia? What do you think these young people, they must be taught the subject of agriculture? Coming to that one also, I want us to look at the importance of soil in plant growth. It's another aspect that I want us to look at. So plant cannot do without soil. So soil is very important to the plant growth. I don't believe that there is a plant anywhere in this world which can grow without soil. Even if it's not hanging on the soil, wherever it is, that contact surface, or where the plant is attached, I believe that that surface has a contact with the soil. So plant cannot do without soil. And now, talking about this soil and how it's important for the plant growth, I want us to look at the three main layers of soil profile. So the soil itself is divided into three main layers, which are very important for the plant growth. And these layers include now the A horizons, or they can be referred as B horizon or C horizon. Now, the A horizon is one that is often cultivated. Most of the time, this soil is worked on, or it's a busy soil. And then this soil has a complex mixture of plant nutrients and soil organisms. So a lot of plant nutrients and microorganisms dwell in this part of the soil, which is the topsoil, or which is referred as A horizons. And this part of the soil, it also anchors the plant to the ground, meaning that it holds the plant firmly to the ground. It's where the plant attach firmly on the ground. Now, the same soil, it also supply, or the benefit of supplying the bulk of the nutrients that plants also need, or it has the necessary nutrients that the plants requires. It also contains organic matter. Mostly, this soil is dark in color. Then also coming to the B horizons. So the B horizons, its color is different from the A horizons. Now, what can be the color of the B horizons then, since the color of the A horizon is dark? So maybe that's a question I can leave it up to you to find out what could be the color of the B horizons. Yes, in most cases, the B horizons might be brown in color, or it might be a bit also dark gray due to the accumulations of microorganisms there, or sometimes it may also depend on the rainfall in that specific area. So it is, color is different, which can be either brown or dark gray, and also the texture and the structure are also different of this soil, because this here there's also a little bit of rock type of, so the structure is a bit different from the A horizons. So it also may contain much more clay. As I said, now the structure is contained because there's more clay in this part of the soil, but it has good water holding capacity, very good for crop growth. If this horizon is dense and impenetrable with no pores, then roots and crops may not grow well in this soil if it is a bit dense. Then the C horizon now is another soil, or sometimes it can be referred as parent rock or parent materials of the soil. It's known as parent material. So it is composed of either rock or partly decomposed rock of soil materials. If the soil is shallow and the horizon is rock, then of course, yes, plant roots cannot penetrate and grow, and the growth of plant is totally restricted in this type of soil. And it also forms water table. It's mostly where the water accumulates or settle under the ground. So now, looking at this subject of soil profile, I have just included I have inserted some clip here, or a picture, just to illustrate to you how the soil horizon is more important, or maybe just for you to get a clear picture of what are we talking about when we talk about this type of soil profile or different layers of the soil. As you can see here, that the top soil, you can see that is the A horizon, is where most of the rotting plants are, and finally decomposed rock, and it's consisting of most of the microorganisms and nutrients are found there. And you can see that that's where the plant grows very well, and it is where attached to the soil. It's accommodated the plants. It's very much conducive for the plants to grow at that soil profile or layer, which is the A horizons. Then the B horizon, yes, it's also consisting of decomposed rocks, a lot of rocks there, or clays is in that part there. But of course, yes, so the plant roots also can reach that part of the soil, or the roots of the plants can penetrate that area of the soil. Then now we have the last one, which is now the C horizons, which is totally decomposed rock, and mostly it's a good soil for, we call it, or we refer it to as water table, because a lot of water accumulates into this soil, since it's just composed of rocks, and water dwells or settle there. So let us look at also some aspects of these modules, another issues, which is why water and light is more essential for plant growth. Now we look at why water and light is more important for plant growth, because as I have said earlier already, that a plant cannot do without soil. At the same time, also in the similar manner, plants cannot do without water, and it cannot do without light. So these are the main components that the plant need for its growth: water, lights, and soil. These are the major components. Now, coming to this subject, for example, in Namibia, we say Namibia is one of the driest countries in the world. Hence, it is also in a state of absolute water scarcity. Water is very scarce in our country due to the climate conditions or the weather conditions in our country, Namibia. So hence, the root cause of water scarcity in Namibia is, as I said earlier, is because of the arid climate. When you are saying arid climate, we mean that dry weather. We are referring to a dry weather conditions. And also, is due to lack of adequate rainfall. So we do not have enough or sufficient rainfall in Namibia. So water in Namibia is therefore a limited natural resources. However, there are many water sources, and this can be classified as rivers, rain, dams, and underground waters are found in most places in Namibia, so or is readily available, though water is referred to as a limited natural resources in Namibia. And of course, yes, that is due to our weather conditions and also the amount of rain that we receive, which is quite insufficient. Now, the importance of water to the plant growth is because water is very essential because it is life to plants, as it constitutes up to 80% of the plant biomass. Water is therefore also necessary in agriculture for food production because, yes, water is used for irrigation purposes. So without water, then agriculture cannot take place as much as possible. Within the plant, water is also needed for chemical reaction of life to occur that involve transfer of plant nutrients, namely, for example, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the chemical reactions of life, or the lipids, minerals, and vitamins. So these are all the nutrients that are required. So when water chemical reactions are taking place. So then we also have adequate water supply or absorption from the soil. This can lead to healthy plants, assuming all the required nutrients are not limiting. Inadequate water supply will lead to stunt growth, and complete lack of water will cause early plant death. So that's why it's necessary to have water readily available for the plant growth, because without water, then the plant cannot survive and it will eventually die. So on top of that also, water basically is also needed for growth, and is also needed for the strength, and also needed it acts as a thermostat, and also needed for food, nutrients, and roots. Basically, that's essentially why water is needed for. Mostly plant need water for what? Mostly it's for growth, it's for strength, it's also act as a thermostat, mostly it's also for food, nutrients, and also for the strength of roots, or for the roots growth. Looking at the importance of conserving or importance of water to plant growth, again, if we continue with that one, we have already covered most of this topic. But let us also look at the methods of conserving or saving water. So we say, yes, it's very much important to save water in agriculture. Now we have to look at this simple method of conserving or saving water. For example, watering or irrigating plants early in the morning or late in the evening is very much important, since this one can conserve water due to low evaporative losses. So because when you do this irrigation system, or you do irrigate the crops during the morning or early in the morning or late in the evening, it have an advantage of preventing too much water not to lose due to evaporations. Because if you water during the day or during the middle of the day where the sun is hitting, then a lot of water will be evaporated, and it will not be beneficial enough to the crops. Now, if you water or irrigate your plant during the day, as I said earlier, that a lot of water will evaporate and therefore will not percolate in the soil properly in order to benefit the plant or the crops. So another method of saving or conserving water is also rainwater harvesting, which is a process of using water tanks in order to capture water from the rooftops, whereby the rainwater harvesting is any method of collecting rainwater from natural or man-made surfaces to be stored and used for productive purposes, such as human or livestock consumptions, or it can be used for irrigation purposes or for other household costs and construction purposes as well. Now, looking at the costs that are involved in water supply to the household or school, as say water is a valuable and expensive resource. Also, we have to take that in mind, that water is just not a resource. It's very much a valuable resource, and yet it's also an expensive resource. That's why it's very important to take care of, to save water. Now, people use water for many purposes, including agricultural and power generation, as well as for personal needs. Students also use large amounts of water every day for drinking and washing, and also when using toilets or bathrooms. So they make use of water. Now, I have also attached this picture, just a very simple picture, just to illustrate on how rainwater harvesting can be done. Very simple at home. If you have a building, for example, there, so one can use that building in order to collect or harvest rainwater so that the rainwater cannot be wasted. So you can use your top roof surface as a catchment area, as the water or the rain drop on that rooftop. So then the water will fall on the tunnel, which is just also made along the roof. And then from the tunnel, there's also a tank which has been which is also connecting to the main reservoir, which is the tank or covered storage or reservoir, where the water mostly accumulate from the roof. And then the reservoir also have the water tap or the outlet tap, which allows the water to be released or to be collected for household consumptions or for any other irrigation purposes or agricultural production purposes. So that's simple how the rainwater harvesting can be done. Even in the rural area or rural community, even in town, it can be applied in order to conserve or save water for household consumptions. Now, looking at continuing with the methods of conserving or saving water. So under this one again, I just want us to look at or the issue that when you're bringing water to a school, it also involves some cost, because it's not just easy. Because if you want to bring a water facility to a certain school, it has a lot of cost, because you have to look at many costs. Like, for example, surveying costs can be carried out. For example, the surveying cost is necessary to survey the drain so that the water source, for example, whether the water source is the lakes or boreholes, or is it groundwater, or is it a reservoir, well dam or rivers, so that you can see where it can be located and the bulk tank can be positioned appropriately. So that's why it's good also to make a survey first to see where you can locate that water reservoir. And this sometimes it can be costly to carry out this type of survey. Material cost, of course, yes, is another cost on its own. Also the equipment cost, or the materials and equipment that will be used in establishing or installing this type of facilities are also costly. Then the civil works, of course, yes, to be needed. So if there's a need to construct canals or a dam or wall or drilling a borehole, these civil works must be taken into account as well. So maybe the shade and foundation for mounting the pumps and generators. Also, all these things need to be considered in bringing water to a school or a water facility to a school. So this also includes many other costs, for example, the installation cost or maintenance cost, or the also insurance cost. So apart from this cost now, I also want you to go to your study guide again, go through your study guide and read and understand the concept of weed. Yes, in this module, in this unit, there is another main crucial topic, which is weed. I want you to look at weed and why weed should be removed from valuable plants or valued plants. Weed, when you're talking about weed, we are referring to any other plants that grow where it is not needed or required. Any plant that grows where is not needed or desired, then we refer to that specific plant that is a weed. And now I want you to study that whole concept of weed and understand the reason why we need to remove weeds from those valuable plants. So all those things, you may find them in your study guides. Please go in your study guide and look at that concept of weed. Now, I want us to look at the risk factors to food securities in Namibia. More especially the risk factors, we are looking at the threats to food securities in Namibia. So there are threats or some factors or the risk factors to food securities in Namibia. For example, the natural attributes. As we have already talked earlier, that Namibia is a semi-arid country or is a dry country with low rainfall and higher temperatures and hence higher evaporation water losses. So then we say about 34% of the country receive more than 400 millimeters of rain annually. And now this one is a natural disaster, or is one of the natural attributes that have a very serious impact on food securities in Namibia. So this is the reason why Namibia is not able to produce enough food, or the food are not readily available throughout the countries because of natural attributes, because of the natural conditions of the countries, more especially due to insufficient rainfall. Now, another factor could be input availabilities and affordabilities, because food supply is being affected by a number of factors, including low crops yield, rising input costs, for example, energies and also fertilizers. These things are not readily available, or even if they are available, sometimes not every farmer can afford them. And now this make it difficult for food productions or for agricultural productions, and hence, yes, become a threat to food securities in Namibia. And then also another factor can be the land tenures and land size holdings, because it's due to increasing scarcities of and people are competing or demanding for fresh waters and also for land, meaning that the land is not readily available. Not everybody have access also to land. Another factors can be investments and appropriate technologies. For example, low levels and slow pace of investments in agricultural technology. We don't have enough infrastructures or processing facilities, and not least agricultural research and developments are also not is also another threat to food securities in Namibia. So apart from that, we also have other factors that could be climate change is another one, because a lot of time changes in climate also have an influence on food securities in Namibia. Then also the land degradations, and this we are referring to severe degradation that has taken place in many places, so resulting in huge open lands popularly known as oceanas, as a result of wind or water erosions, overgrazings, or chemical pollution in some cases, or desertification is widespread across the breadth and length of Namibia. So because all this also now causes the land degradations, or the land is a bit being deteriorated because of most of the activities that are going on there, or natural activities that are going on there on the land. Now, apart from these factors, again and again, I would like to refer you again, go back to your study guide again and study more. I want you to read and understand the objectives of dealing with challenge in agriculture in Namibia, and also criteria that are considered desirable for any soil and also water sometimes, or onset and conserving technologies. And I also want you to focus on the analysis of food situation in Namibia. Just to, in general, how do you analyze the food situation in Namibia? Apart from these factors that we have just discussed right now, the factors that have influence on food scarcity in Namibia. So I also want you to look at the aspect, or to focus on the food, on the analysis of the food situation in Namibia, and also understand the objective of dealing with challenges in agriculture in Namibia, and also those criteria that are considered desirable for any soil or conservation technology. So go in your study guide and touch on those topics, read them and understand them. So now let us also look at the damage that are caused by diseases and pests on plants. So there are three main types of infectious disease that are mostly affecting plants. And these main diseases are categorized as diseases that are caused by fungi, which are fungal diseases, or diseases that are caused by bacteria, which are called referred to as bacteria diseases, or diseases that are caused by viruses, which are also called like viral diseases. I want you to go in your study guide and also look at those type of diseases. And also some damage also in plants. It can also caused by pests. And now pests, they can be placed into four main categories, which can be insects and closely related animals, plant diseases, weeds, and vertebrates. These are also referred to as pests, or in categories of pests that can cause serious damage to the plants. Now, there are also now three main ways by which a plant can respond to a disease. And these ways now, like how do you know that this plant is infected or the plant is attacked by a certain disease? So you can only tell because if you observe very well, there are ways by which a plant can respond to a disease when it's infected. For example, you may notice some overdevelopments of tissues of plants or galls, or some swellings or leaf curls. You will notice this type of abnormalities on the plants, and you can know that this plant is abnormal and it might be infected with a certain disease. Or sometimes it can be overdevelopment of tissues, or it can be an underdevelopment of tissues, or maybe stunting or lack of chlorophyll and incomplete development of organs. Yes, the plant organs, for example, maybe the stems or the roots or the leaves of the plant, or maybe the fruits of the plants might be in an abnormal shape. And when we are also referring to the lack of chlorophyll also, this is when sometimes you find that the leaf of the plant sometimes may turn yellowish instead of the plant becoming green, because it lacks that chlorophyll, which is the pigments, a very unique pigment in the plant that is responsible for giving green color to the plant. Now, such type of things or these pigments can lack. And when you notice something like that, you will know that this plant is not responding well, and it might be infected with a disease. Sometimes also death of tissues or blights, leaf spots, wilting, and cankers can also, you can notice from that yes, this plant is infected. Now, there are also now 4 organisms that are associated with plant diseases. Yes, and we have said it already previously, and these organisms that can cause mostly the plant diseases, we have bacteria, we have the fungi, the viruses, and the nematodes These type of organisms are the ones that are associated with any kind of plant disease. Now, let us also look at the essentials of water and light for plant growth. We have already talked a bit on this topic previously, how water, as I said, that water is very essential and light is also very essential for plant growth, because a plant cannot do without water or light. Now, looking at that, though we say that water is a limited resource in Namibia, but we also have the main sources of water in Namibia, which is simple. I have already said that mainly in Namibia we have sources of water, for example, in rain. Rain is one of the main sources. Rivers is also another source. Dams and groundwaters are also the main source of water in Namibia. So the main important rivers and dams which provide water in Namibia, yes, they are normally include, we have a lot of rivers. We have the Zambezi Rivers Basin, the Kavango River Basin, Kunene River, Kwisep River, Oresuakopo, and also Marude, etc. So you can go in your study guides and find out of those. Even we can use other reference materials and familiarize yourself with those type of, with the main source of water in Namibia, or so that you can also know the types of rivers and dams in Namibia. So you have a lot of dams, for example, in Namibia. We can name them here. We have the Avis Dams, Danfriun, Hardap Nature, and or Ushanja, or Matako, Rakana. We have so many dams. So you can go in your study guides and find out about these dams. Even you can study in general other study materials and get to know these type of dams in Namibia. Now, also looking, but before we go at this topic, apart from these dams also, again, I want you to study or read and understand how to create a bully-free environment at your school and educational behavior modulation approaches that increases suitable students' behavior. Remember that in your study guide, there's also another topic or another aspect that I want you to look at, which is bullying, which is mostly done at schools. Bullying. Now, you as a teacher, I want you to look at or to read and understand, like, how will you create that bully-free environment at your school? How do you avoid it? So go in your study guide and study that. And apart from that also, I want you to read and understand those educational behavior modulation approaches that increases a suitable study behaviors. So go in your study guides and look at that. Now, also looking at how to take care of farm animals. So when you are taking care of animal or farm animals, one of the things that we look at is your facilities or the design of the housing where the animals are being kept in. So, and now, for example, the housing should provide enough space for social opportunities or foraging opportunities and provision for daily exercises. Animal can recognize up to 3 to 4 friends and are always happy to have a company. That's why the facilities or the housing facility or the design must be able to provide enough space for the animal to be able to mingle with one another or to move around. So then housing should also not pose any risk associated with injuries. For example, maybe slippery floor or sharp protruding objects. All these things should be avoided. So floor space should be adequate so that the animals are not isolated, and it must also have good ventilations and bedding. As I said, good ventilation, it means, or it refers to enough air circulations. And then also healthy is also another aspect that it is the responsibility of the farmer to ensure that all animals are always in good health. And also when you are talking about taking care of animals also, the way you handle and train animals, it also be considered in such a way that this must be done humanly without beating them or disturbing them through loud sound or shouting. So all these are very much important when you are taking care of animals. Feeding and water, and also experiment or research, meaning that animals should not be subjected to painful or inhuman experimental treatments. So all these type of things should be avoided, and animals' welfare should be taken into considerations. Now, we have come to the end of our presentations. But before I come to the end of the presentation, I also want you to go in your study guide, and so that you read and understand the common parasites and the diseases that attack animals and how can they be prevented. As I said, I want you to read and understand common parasite and disease that attack animals and how they can be prevented. And before we close off today, I want you also, or I want us to touch on how to prepare for your exam. Please, when you are preparing for examinations, make sure that you have all your study guide or materials or the resources, as I said earlier. Make sure that you have your correct modules, which is the Agricultural Education 1, Bes Age22 is the code of the subject, and have all the relevant materials related to these modules. Please also make sure that you spend enough time to go through your study guide. So don't just wait until the last minute, or you wait when is the days of the exams are nearby, then that's when you are starting to touch or to go through your study guide. Make sure that you have enough time to go through your study guide. Take time also to acquaint yourself with the content of the modules, as I said already. Make sure that you understand all the verbs that are used or that are commonly used in the exam. For example, define, clarify, discuss, or explain. They are in your study guide. Make sure that you understand when the person says define or explain or clarify. So what does it mean? So that you will be able to answer your questions accordingly. Always pay attention to the marks allocated to the questions and answer the questions accordingly. So if the question is 10 marks, answer according to 10 marks. If the question is 2 marks, answer according to that 2 marks. Don't give a history of 2 marks. So make sure that you answer, observe the marks allocated and answer according to those marks. And I urge you also to never leave the questions blanks. Make sure that at least you put something there on the questions. So general knowledge is very important. Answer according how you understand the question instead of just leaving the question blank. So you do not necessarily need to memorize everything in the modules, but you just need to understand the modules in general and answer the questions according to how you understand. And that will help you to score better marks instead of you leaving it blank and just score 0. So revise your assignments and revise your notes and also the presentation that we have just discussed right now. All these ones can help you to do better in your exams. So as I said earlier, if you need any other you have any other questions or you need clarification, please feel free to contact me. My contact details, I have already shared them earlier at the beginning of these presentations. So otherwise, we have come to an end of our presentation, and all the best for your 2021 examination. And remember to take care of yourself since we are facing this pandemic. Please observe the measures that are taken in place and take care. Thank you.